The austere notion that cinema has long embraced celebrates filmmakers whose body of work exudes a distinctive voice, offering audiences a peek into the mind of such visionaries. More often than not, their films surpass mere entertainment, bringing its audiences into a state of reflection and encouraging them to question the film's significance beyond its frame. Among the many auteurs of cinema is undoubtedly Abbas Kiarostami. In fact, the Iranian director even received the endorsement of legendary Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, who believed that his films are extraordinary. Kurosawa goes on to write, "Words cannot describe my feelings about them, and I simply advise you to see his films." To fully understand Kiarostami's work and its merits, it is important to consider his background as an artist and his roots as a filmmaker. Kiarostami was born in Tehran on the 22nd of June 1940. His father was a painter and decorator, and aptly, his first foray into the arts came in the form of painting, which he pursued at Tehran University's School of Fine Arts. Much of Kiarostami's films feature stunning visual landscapes and interesting compositions, qualities brought forward from his visual art background. In his time as an artist, Kiarostami was also heavily influenced by Iranian poetry. Kiarostami only began making films in 1969, when he started a filmmaking department at Kanun, the Center for the Intellectual Development of Children and Young Adults. There, he honed his craft in filmmaking, which will later contribute significantly to the Iranian New Wave. The Iranian New Wave began in 1969 with the release of Dariush Majou's film Gaf. Along with directors such as Furro Farrokhzad, Jafar Panahi, Mohsen Makhmalbaf, and Masoud Mikieh, Kiarostami was instrumental in driving the Iranian New Wave forward, which produced 40 to 50 films in a span of 3 to 4 years. The Iranian New Wave is frequently compared to Italian neorealism, as they both depict the realities of the ordinary man in their natural environment, with narratives rooted in everyday life. Thus, these films are often rich in cultural value. Because of its nature, the film movement is also credited for blurring the lines between fiction and non-fiction, applying elements of documentary filmmaking into its narrative films. Considering the political landscape of Iran, the efforts of the Iranian New Wave and its directors are commendable. Iranian cinema faces much pressure from the government, with strict censorship over many of the films produced in Iran. In the fundamentalist Muslim nation, the government rigorously controls much of the media, which is largely centered around propaganda. After the Iranian Revolution in 1979, many of Iran's filmmakers fled the country to seek greener pastures. Kiarostami, however, stayed on. Kiarostami's time at Kanun from 1969 to 1985 was an important phase in his film career, as it provided him the most favorable environment in Iran for any Iranian filmmaker. Kanun faced little financial restrictions or interference from authorities, allowing Kiarostami the freedom to experiment and better himself as a filmmaker. It was here that his film style began to develop, as he set about exploring themes in line with the center's agenda of educating children. Kiarostami's first film, Brit and Ali, tells the story of a young boy who stumbles across an aggressive dog on his way home. And in Two Solutions, One Problem, Kiarostami presents the story of two boys and how they resolve their conflict with childlike simplicity.
کیف دارا پاره شد. قلم نادر شکست.
While his later films would evolve to explore heavier themes such as ethics, self-identity, life, and death, the minimalistic approach to his filmmaking would remain. Children also continue to be a key subject in many of Kiarostami's later films, often placing them opposite adult characters to establish interesting relationships, encouraging questions of morality by juxtaposing the innocence of childhood with the experience of adulthood. While most would shun the difficulty of directing children, Kiarostami takes it a step further with his preference for casting non-actors in his films, and it is the consistency and authenticity of the performances that emphasizes Kiarostami's mastery of directing. Rural Iran is also a feature in many of Kiarostami's films, with the environment as central to the film as the story itself. Kiarostami also often shoots entire scenes in cars. Taking advantage of the scenic landscapes rural Iran offers, He allows his characters to endlessly meander around picturesque deserts and hills, a beautiful metaphor for the journey of life prevalent in many of his films. Another feature of Kiarostami's films are his unique characters. From an imposter pretending to be a film director to a man looking to be buried, Kiarostami offers in his films a range of characters worth pondering over.
چون به نظرم میاد که یا آدم‌های یعنی ما پرداختمون از آدمیزاد ما که نمیتونیم همه آدم‌ها رو جلوی دوربینمون ببریم. ما باید یا دنبال آدم‌های ویژه بگردیم یا دنبال آدم‌های معمولی در شرایط ویژه. این ویژگی در واقع چه کار داره میکنه با ما؟ این ویژگی یادآوری میکنه به ما که ما از نوع همونها هستیم و به همین دلیل فیلم رو یک نفر بازی میکنه، یک نفر میسازه ولی با هزاران نفر ارتباط برقرار میکنه. یعنی در واقع همه اینها با هم سازنده، با بازیگر، هم بازیگر با تماشاگر یک فصل مشترک دارن.
While the Iranian New Wave is known for challenging the notions of fiction and reality, the films of Kiarostami, many of which are self-reflexive, further obscures the difference. With the documentary-like performances of his actors, his choice of visual landscapes, and his naturalistic cinematography, Kiarostami truly pushes the boundaries, and no other film better exemplifies this than his 1990 film, Close Up. Close Up tells the true story of Hossein Sabzian, who impersonated Iranian filmmaker Mohsen Makhmalbaf and cheated the Ahanka family into thinking they would be acting for his next film. Kiarostami adopted a truly bizarre approach in shooting Close Up, gathering the actual people involved in the real-life case, from Hossein Sabzian to the Ahanka family and the judge who passed the verdict, to reenact the entire saga acting as themselves under his direction. Often, he would interject from off-screen with questions directed at the actors themselves.
احساس کردم همه اینها رو میتونم دقیقاً هم در ذهنم دارم هم میتونم بکنم بازیشو بکنم.
خب الان فکر نمی‌کنی به عنوان یه بازیگر جلوی دوربین نشستی؟ داری چیکار می‌کنی الان؟
The film blends actual documentary footage, such as video interviews with the persons involved, as well as footage from the trial, with scenes reenacted by Sabzian and the Ahanka family, therefore making it a challenge to differentiate what was staged from what actually happened. Close Up showcases Kiarostami's method of simple and direct filmmaking. In terms of cinematography, he often employs long-take close-ups to allow his characters to deliver dialogue. These shots are often static, with camera movement motivated only by the actions of characters. The use of sound in Kiarostami's films is also important, not in the way sound effects are important to the blockbusters of Hollywood, but in how they create the off-screen space Kiarostami often fills to communicate to the audience the world beyond the frame. In The Wind Will Carry Us, a film crew under the guise of production engineers arrives in a village to await the death of an old woman in order to document the mourning rituals of the locals. In the film, Kiarostami often interjects long takes with actors communicating with people off-screen. The effect is a heightened sense of realism, where performing for the audience is less of a priority than the character's ultimate purpose.
چی میگه این خانم؟ میگه قابل نداره اگر اینجا جا کم از بیارده اینجا.
دست شما درد نکنه. ما دو سه شب اینجا بیشتر نیستیم. خیلی ممنون.
In doing so, Kiarostami extends the world of the film outside of what is seen on screen, effectively including the audience in the film, where our participation is one of an observer. As such, the deceptively simple cinematography has in fact a calculated intention to serve as a unique first-person perspective for the viewer. The Wind Will Carry Us also features the landscapes of rural Iran often seen in Kiarostami's films. The mise-en-scène is largely unaltered, with all of the scenes shot on location with available light. As with all of Kiarostami's films, he opts for naturalistic performances from his actors. These elements combined help to achieve Kiarostami's unique hybrid docudrama film style. This can also be seen in what critics believe to be Kiarostami's hallmark film, Taste of Cherry, which won the Palme d'Or in 1997. Taste of Cherry is made up largely of the main protagonist, Badi, driving in search of someone to bury him, and a bulk of the film is made up of scenes shot in or around Badi's Range Rover, Again, the cinematography is uncomplicated, made up of mostly static long takes, but it is Kiarostami's composition of the image that makes his method work time and time again, giving us the best view of rural Iran. As with Close-Up and The Wind Will Carry Us, the editing of Taste of Cherry is typically Kiarostamian. Kiarostami often edits his own films, and in Taste of Cherry, he adopts the same slow-paced editing seen in most of his films. It is a conscious refrain from the fast-paced editing of conventional cinema, as he explains that his films reflect his life's pace and rhythm. However, Kiarostami does adhere to the style of continuity editing, employing the shot reverse shot technique in many of his films and complying with the 180-degree rule. To achieve such depth with such simple techniques is what makes Abbas Kiarostami a truly remarkable filmmaker. While many film directors opt to execute elaborate storylines with flamboyant techniques, it is Kiarostami's humanistic cinema that reminds us that stories can be told in a sincere and honest manner and still inspire. Above all, it is his determination to be a filmmaker under such adverse conditions in Iran that should be a lesson to all who aspire likewise. Though he maintains his quiet presence, Kiarostami remains a true cinematic giant, whose films have found their way into the hearts of film lovers worldwide.